back to yet another episode of our educational videos. Today I am going to talk about the Easels and I title it Much Maligned Easel. Many of you know that from where this title comes. It is coming from Parthamita's Much Maligned Monsters, where this book, which deals with the Indian traditional painting, sculptures, art in general, which the Europeans saw as monsters. The colonial masters saw as monsters. They couldn't understand. So today, I am talking about much maligned easels. You know, today, no artists want to call themselves as painters or sculptors or even photographers or installation artists. They all want to use as this encompassing title as artist. They want to be artists because artist is a term that actually covers all the aspects of making art, painting, sculpture, or something. But there are painters, there are sculptors, there are installation artists who prefer to be called like that. You know, you can see painters altogether living painting and going into performance art. There are sculptors who are living sculpting altogether and becoming installation artists. There are printmakers who leave everything aside and becoming something else. There are some artists I have seen who leave art altogether and become farmers. So today, artists could be farmers even. As we know, anything could be artistic. Anything could be art, provided if you do it artistically. Today, I want to talk about the easels. Easels are such contraptions which painters use in their studios. You know, it looks like this. It has a history. It comes from traditional times, and there was a time why people used it. They wanted to keep their painterly surfaces or drawing surfaces against something which could hold it. It's a contraption. It's a mechanism made of wood which could hold the surface. And lot of artists, most of the artists used to use this. There is a history. That history tells us that even in the first century AD, where when Pliny was writing his scriptures, that time there is a reference to easels. Then in the 8th century, you can see a lot of people, the artists in China, using something look like this easel. And then we come to the 13th century, or even 12th century, we can see monks, the Buddhist monks or other religious monks using, or even Christian monks using easel to illuminate the scriptures, to make paintings on the scriptures. But there is a huge difference between the easels which were used for painting on paper and the easels used for canvases or canvas or painting done on canvases. By 13th century, history says that there is an increase in canvas availability. So artists shift from, there is a huge shift from the methods and materials that they used for making art. When paper was available, they were using papers, and it was scarce even. And when cloth based canvases started coming into the market or its availability was increased, artists started using canvases because there are so many possibilities, so many conveniences about the canvas, which could be propped up against a frame and then kept against an easel or kept against a surface. And they wanted to have this easels. They invented this contraption called easels. As I said earlier, Here you can see Nikhil Chopra. He's a painter who turned into a performance artist. And here it is Riaz Kapoor, who paints as well as sculpts. So you can see they are not sticking to one particular genre of art. They are they want to be called as artists. You can see Velasquez, the 17th century Spanish artist. There you can see his painting La Meninas. Here you can see the artist is standing in front of an easel. So this is one pictorial evidence that we get that by 17th century, after Renaissance, during Renaissance, of course, artists were using a lot of easels. And here you can see a pictorial evidence in which the painting itself shows there is an easel. A painter painting on the canvas and the easel is also visible. So it is as if the painter is seen by the same painter from outside the painting so that we could see the back side of the canvas as well as the easel. Then we come to Francisco Goya. Goya again is a 17th century painter and he is a Spanish painter. He is painting against and keeping the canvas against the easel and he's painting. The famous Vincent van Gogh, he also used easels. There is a pictorial, intrinsic pictorial evidence that he is making a painting, keeping the canvas against the easel. So the easel is everywhere. This is an early 20th century photograph where we can see that artists are getting trained in a studio where everyone is using an easel. Now we come to India, early 19th century, or no, sorry, late 19th century and early 20th century. And this is a new photograph. This is the studio, apparently the studio of Raja Ravivarma, and you can see the easel in there. This is in Trivandrum, in Kilimanur, where he was born and brought up. This is his studio recreated there, and we have to believe that this was his easel. Pablo Picasso, definitely he was a maverick. He used to paint in various formats. He used to sculpt, but he himself was known as a painter, a famous painter, famous artist at the same time, but famous painter. He is seen here as using a easel, an easel. Salvador Dali uses an easel here, and he is painting something, and he is looking at the camera. Definitely, that easel is our focus here. And when we come to the second half of the 20th century, or towards the second half of the 20th century, we can see the conceptual practices coming into painting. This is a photograph of Jackson Pollock making his drip painting. So the canvas is horizontally placed on the wall, on the floor, and he plays it. He actually plays upon or plays on the canvas. He actually dances and he drips the painting on the canvas. So easel is removed from his studio. And when the conceptual practices started, the studio became an ideating space. It is not a conventional space where an artist sit against an easel. So it became an ideating space and where they could bring in so many different materials and methods. So here we start seeing the absence of an easel. But when we come to the 21st century, there are very such kind of artists who are very who approach their painting as pure painting. There is no concept as such pure painting, but they approach it as a kind of painting which is not influenced by any other material. If they are painting oil on canvas, it is oil on canvas. They don't add threads or plaster of Paris or something like that to get textures and things like that. They paint like the Renaissance painters. This is one painting by Shibu Notation. Here he paints the image of Caspar David Frederick, the French romantic painter, sorry, the German romantic painter, who is standing against the the easel and making a painting. Shibu himself, he actually, this is the, in late 19th century, the Barbizon school painters, means the plain air painters, the artists who preferred to paint outside, means in the landscape, within the landscape. They were called the Barbizon school painters or plain air painters. They developed this contraption. They developed a kind of easel fitted with a box so that they can carry their paintings and all the brushes and other stuff, other paraphernalia which are used for painting. So they can carry a easel fitted with a box. So this is such kind of an easel which Shibu carries around. He travels all over the world and the paints. So here you can see him standing and painting directly. And this is the photograph of an easel, his own easel. Shibu Nadeshan took this picture from behind the easel, and on the easel you could see a painting which he has just finished. And now, why easel is a much maligned monster? Because of this. Many self-trained artists, many artists who are not deep in their art, they who make a shallow decorative paintings, they exhibit uh, their paintings, their works on easels like this. So its value has gone down. If you are painting and exhibiting on an easel, we look at it as something devalued. So if today somebody calls some painter, you are an easel painter, it is not addressing or it is not aimed at artists like Shibu Nateshan or A. Ramachandran, who just passed away. It is aimed at these kind of artists who actually simply exhibit their works, their hobby works at any given space in kind of impromptu shows propped up like this. So easel has been maligned or condescended or disparaged because of this kind of artists. I don't discount them, but easel had a great history, easel had a great dignity, easel had a prominent space in the studios of the painters. Even today, there are artists who keep easel in their studios, but when they do huge works, they try to avoid using easel as a platform. Thank you.